It was a gloomy evening when James delivered the bombshell that would turn our lives upside down. The rain tapped persistently on the windows, mirroring the tension in the room. I had been preparing dinner, the savory aroma of my homemade lasagna filling our modest kitchen. When I heard the front door slam shut, I knew something was amiss. James, his normally cheerful face etched with an unsettling resolve, entered the kitchen. His footsteps echoed ominously on the tiled floor as he approached me. He didn't even bother to take off his rain-soaked coat. "Emma," he said, his voice devoid of its usual warmth, "I've quit my job." I froze, a forkful of lasagna halfway to my mouth. It dropped back onto the plate with a soft clatter. Panic and disbelief welled up within me. "What? Why, James? You had a stable job? A good income?" He didn't let me finish. His gaze, usually so tender, turned icy and piercing as he interrupted me. "I'm done with it, Emma. I want something different, something more, and I won't settle for less." I could see the determination in his eyes, a fire that burned with an intensity I had never seen before. His words hung heavy in the air, leaving me with a sense of impending doom. Little did I know that this was just the beginning of a harrowing ordeal that would test the very foundation of our family. In the days that followed James's shocking announcement about quitting his job, our home became a battleground of emotions, resentment, and fear. His decision was like a dark cloud that hung over our lives, casting a shadow on our once happy family. James had turned into a stranger, and his threats became increasingly menacing. He repeated his ultimatum relentlessly, as if it were a mantra he had rehearsed in his mind. "You need to provide for my mother, Emma," he demanded, each word dripping with disdain. $5,000 a month, or you'll be left with nothing." The weight of those words pressed down on me like a leaden blanket. The threat of divorce, combined with the possibility of losing custody of our beloved son, Matthew, felt like an insurmountable mountain I had to climb. I tried to reason with James to make him see the irrationality of his demands, but it was as if he had built an impenetrable wall around himself. He was unyielding, his anger simmering just below the surface. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Anxiety gnawed at me day and night. It was a constant struggle to maintain a facade of normalcy in front of Matthew, to shield him from the turmoil that had consumed our household. Each day, as I grappled with the magnitude of what James had thrust upon me, I wondered how I could possibly come up with such an exorbitant sum. I felt trapped in a nightmare of my own making, and I knew that I had to find a way out before our family crumbled beyond repair. As the days turned into weeks, my desperation grew, fueled by the overwhelming pressure of James's demands. I was faced with the daunting task of finding a way to generate $5,000 a month to support his mother, and the weight of that responsibility was suffocating. I spent countless hours researching various avenues to make that kind of money. I considered taking on multiple jobs, regardless of the toll it would take on my physical and emotional well-being. The thought of working day and night, sacrificing any semblance of a personal life, loomed ominously in my mind. Desperation led me to explore other options, such as selling our possessions. I listed items on online marketplaces, trying to generate some quick cash, but it was a drop in the ocean compared to what James was demanding. The prospect of taking out a loan crossed my mind, but it was a risky proposition. We were already living on a tight budget, and adding debt to the mix would only make our financial situation more precarious. As I reached the breaking point, it felt like the walls were closing in on me. The pressure was unrelenting, and I couldn't see a way out of the impossible situation James had thrust us into. Every night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, searching for a glimmer of hope, a solution that would save our family from the brink of collapse. Amidst the suffocating despair of those days, a glimmer of hope appeared unexpectedly. It was a typical evening, and I had just finished another long day of juggling my responsibilities while trying to find a way to meet James's demands. As I sat at the kitchen table, my laptop open to another job search, I decided to take a short break and check my social media. Scrolling through the endless updates and photos, I stumbled upon a sponsored post that would change the course of my life. The ad was for an online course that promised to teach the fundamentals of starting a small business. It seemed like a long shot, but desperation drove me to click on it and explore further. The course offered insights into entrepreneurship, marketing, and financial management, areas I knew little about. It was a risk, but it was also an opportunity. I hesitated for a moment, thinking about the time and effort it would take, but then I remembered the ultimatum James had given me. I realized that I had to take a chance on something, anything, that might help me generate the income required to save our family. With a sense of determination I hadn't felt in a long time, I enrolled in the course and began the journey into the world of entrepreneurship. I was learning to swim in uncharted waters, fueled by desperation and the need to protect my son, Matthew, from the potential fallout of our crumbling family. Little did I know that this new path I had embarked upon would not only offer a lifeline, but also transform me into a stronger, more resilient person than I had ever imagined. With newfound determination and a glimmer of hope provided by the online course, I dove headfirst into the world of entrepreneurship. The next few months were a blur of relentless work, sacrifices, and sleepless nights. I was on a mission to build a business that could generate the $5,000 a month James demanded to support his mother. My daily routine became a relentless cycle. I would wake up before dawn, often to the sound of Matthew's soft snores, and slip out of bed to start my work. My small home office became my sanctuary, where I poured countless hours into my new venture. The business struggled to take off, and the financial strain was immense. I worked tirelessly to develop a product or service that would resonate with potential customers. I reached out to friends and family for support, both emotionally and financially, as I invested what little savings we had left. Every moment not spent on the business was dedicated to caring for Matthew, who at times seemed to sense the tension in our home. Our once playful moments had been replaced by hasty meals and brief conversations. The guilt I felt for not being fully present in his life weighed heavily on me, but I had no other choice. As the weeks turned into months, I watched as our bank account dwindled and the bills piled up. There were times when I felt like giving up, when the stress threatened to break me, but the thought of losing Matthew and our family kept me pushing forward. The sacrifices were substantial. I missed important moments in Matthew's life, and the strain on our relationship was undeniable. But I was determined to prove to James that I could provide for his mother without sacrificing our family's happiness and well-being. As the months passed, the pressure to meet James's demands grew increasingly unbearable. I had poured my heart and soul into my budding business, making countless sacrifices along the way, but success remained elusive. The $5,000 a month target felt like an insurmountable mountain, always just out of reach. The toll on my physical and emotional well-being was evident. I was perpetually exhausted, with dark circles under my eyes and a constant sense of anxiety gnawing at me. It became a challenge just to get through each day, juggling the demands of my business and the responsibilities of motherhood. One evening, as James and I sat in the dimly lit living room, the tension between us reached its breaking point. We had barely spoken to each other in weeks, our conversations reduced to terse exchanges about household matters. James, who'd been living with the consequences of his impulsive decision to quit his job, finally broke down. Tears streamed down his face as he admitted, "Emma, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize what I was doing. Please forgive me." His words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of regret. It was a moment of vulnerability I had not seen in him for a long time. I looked into his eyes and saw a man who had lost his way, consumed by pride and selfishness. Despite all the pain and turmoil, I knew that I still loved him. I reached out, taking his hand in mine, and for the first time in months, we held each other, our tears mingling. In that fragile moment, I forgave him, not just for the ultimatum and the threats, but for the hurt and damage he had inflicted on our family. The forgiveness I extended to James at the end of Chapter 6 was a turning point in our tumultuous journey. It marked the beginning of a profound transformation in our relationship, one that would ultimately help us navigate the treacherous waters we found ourselves in. In the days that followed our emotional breakthrough, James and I began to communicate more openly and honestly than we had in a long time. We acknowledged our mistakes and the pain we had inflicted on each other. The walls of pride and stubbornness that had divided us for months started to crumble. We decided to seek professional help by attending couples counseling sessions. With the guidance of a skilled therapist, we explored the root causes of our marital strife, delving deep into our individual fears, insecurities, and desires. It was not an easy process, but it was necessary for our healing. Forgiveness, we realized, was not just about letting go of past transgressions, but also about understanding each other's perspectives and finding empathy and compassion in our hearts. It was about recognizing that we were both imperfect beings capable of making mistakes. As the weeks turned into months, our relationship began to mend. We rediscovered the love that had initially brought us together, and our shared commitment to providing a stable and loving home for our son Matthew became our common purpose. With the wounds of our past mistakes slowly healing, Chapter 8 marked the beginning of a new chapter in our lives. It was a chapter filled with hope, growth, and the promise of a brighter future. James and I continued to attend counseling sessions where we learned effective communication strategies and conflict resolution techniques. These tools allowed us to address our differences constructively and prevent misunderstandings from escalating into destructive arguments. My business, which had been struggling for months, began to show signs of improvement. It was still a far cry from generating the $5,000 a month that James had initially demanded, but I was making steady progress. The financial burden was still there, but it no longer felt insurmountable. We started to rebuild our daily routines around quality family time. Matthew, who'd been caught in the crossfire of our turmoil, began to thrive in the loving and stable environment we were creating. His laughter and innocent joy were a constant reminder of what truly mattered in life. One of the most significant changes was our renewed commitment to prioritizing our marriage. We made time for date nights, setting aside moments for just the two of us to reconnect and rediscover the love that had initially brought us together. As we grew closer, we also made an effort to involve James's mother in our lives without the overwhelming financial burden that had previously strained our relationship. We found ways to support her emotionally and make her feel valued without compromising our own well-being. As the months passed, our family continued to heal, and the scars of our past began to fade. The wounds that had once threatened to tear us apart were now a testament to our resilience and the strength of our love. Our home was no longer a battleground, but a sanctuary of peace and understanding. The business I had started during our darkest days began to flourish. It wasn't generating the $5,000 a month James had demanded, but it provided a steady income that eased our financial strain. James, too, had found a new job that he was passionate about, one that allowed him to explore his interests while also contributing to our family's income. Our newfound stability allowed us to prioritize the things that truly mattered. We spent quality time together as a family, cherishing each moment and creating lasting memories. Matthew, who had been the silent victim of our tumultuous journey, was thriving, his smile a constant reminder of the love that had carried us through. We continued attending counseling sessions, not as a desperate attempt to salvage our relationship, but as a means to strengthen our bond and ensure that the mistakes of the past were not repeated. Communication had become the cornerstone of our marriage, and we were no longer afraid to share our thoughts, fears, and dreams with each other. James's mother, who had once been the source of our strife, had become a beloved member of our family. We had found ways to support her without compromising our own well-being, and she too had made efforts to be a positive presence in our lives.